Ladies, a lot of you are still single because you've become the full package. You've become smart, successful, beautiful, independent women, all the things society has pressured you to be. And ironically, that may have actually become a disadvantage or even a liability for you in dating. And this is for a few reasons. The first is because we as women are hypergamous, which means we like to date men who are on our level or above. And so the more you elevate, the smaller your dating pool becomes. There aren't as many guys you're impressed by.
Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna have to go ahead and sort of disagree with you there.
You know, I hate to break it to you, sister, but society didn't tell you any of that. We didn't tell you that you needed to be smart, independent, insufferable, and entitled. That one was all on you, sweetheart. All society told women was to be kind, feminine, and submissive to a man's leadership. But you got so high off the smell of your own mid-farts that the mere idea of being with an average man was nothing short of an insult. So you turned around and assumed that the bottom 95% of men were somehow these subhuman swamp creatures who were simultaneously invisible yet incredibly oppressive. Still trying to figure that one out. You then return the remaining 5% of men into a massive back alley brawl where the only man who wins is Ray Ray McQueen and his infinite harem of strong and independent boss bay yas queens. You all think you have an equal chance of being with this guy, even though all you're doing is fighting to be one of his bed warmers. Meanwhile, the men you ignore just watch the hilarity as you continue to fumble despite us slowly explaining to you why you're failing miserably.
The second reason is you might be operating in your masculine energy because you've had to get to where you're at in life. But the men you are trying to attract prefer women who are in their feminine energy. And the last reason, as a matchmaker, I could tell you this, is a lot of guys claim they want an equal, but really what they want is an asset and a woman who makes them feel masculine. And what makes men feel masculine? Providing. So if you come along and you're all these things, he might think there's nothing I can provide her with that she can't provide herself with, so he's not going to pursue you. And that might make you feel like you're going to have to settle for less or stay single forever. And I don't think you have to do either of those things. You do have solutions.
Nobody cares what you think.
Well, the solution is to not be a stuck-up, entitled little brat. It's not that men don't feel like they can't provide for a woman who already has everything, it's that they don't want to. If we go on to TikTok, all we hear about is how men are supposed to be providers and how men are supposed to do this and we're required to do that. And this is considered to be an empowering rallying cry of modern life failures. However, on the flip side, when a man says that he wants a kind, fertile, feminine woman, all of a sudden he's a hateful, bigoted incel who uses misogyny as an excuse to why he lives in his mother's basement. Men are willing to provide, but it's kind of hard to want to when we're constantly being bombarded with messaging that says we're terrible people unless we provide certain material roles to a woman. We've gone from being viewed as fellow humans to being commodities to be traded on an open market. And I'm just gonna be blunt, sister. If that's the game you're going to play, then I'm afraid you can't afford us. We know our worth, and it's significantly higher than you assume and higher than you can afford.
The first is put yourself in environments where you're exposed to higher caliber men. A lot of you aren't doing that. The second is learn to master your feminine energy. And if you don't know where to start, I have a free video linked in my bio, check it out. Also, maybe think about areas you were willing to compromise on. Is there wiggle room with height? Is there wiggle room with kids? Is there wiggle room with being bald or not? And the last is maybe think about hiring a matchmaker like me or someone who can really set you up with these guys. Follow me for more dating advice and good luck.
I don't think any of that's true.
Well, it's far too late for that, lady. If a woman is at the point where she's considering spending her money on your services, then it would be better invested in cats and boxed wine, because it'll be too late for anything else. Think about it. Your advice to these broads is to be feminine, and if you're at the point where you have forgotten how to be feminine, then you're already beyond hope. You could try to go to where the rich guys are, but they won't be interested in your used up goods because they're too busy pursuing women who are feminine. So many will reserve themselves to a life of bitter resentment for choosing a man who doesn't tick all of the arbitrary boxes that you've been promoting since the dawn of your channel. And much like a modern woman, you will not take the man into consideration with any of this. And that's not surprising, because in your eyes, men don't have feelings. And if they do, they only matter if they're using those feelings to make you feel good about yourself. Once again, that's because you view men as commodities, not as living, breathing, autonomous humans. And that's why you will always fail in your endeavors, no matter how much money you charge for your garbage services. Seriously, lady, you could even cut your rates by 99% and you would still be charging too much.
No one makes friends with a failure.
Okay? You understand?
Oh my word, are you going to know about it if you get into a relationship with an insecure man? They have such fragile egos that they lose all sense of humour. They will pick fights. They are easily offended. You will just find yourself in arguments that you are like, how did we get here? They will exaggerate the truth or just tell blatant lies. Anything that's going to increase their sense of status or self because they're uncomfortable with who they are. He will be more interested in himself, how he looks, how he's perceived. He will be more critical and judgmental of others, other men, other women. He'll need much more reassurance and validation than a confident, self-secure man.
Say what now? What now?
And how exactly would you know, woman? I honestly don't see how you can be such an expert on male security when an innocuous comment about your makeup will send you into such a rage that you need to go on a 3-minute long rant about how all men are evil and bad. And that's because you project your insecurities onto every single man that you meet, regardless of their confidence. The idea of having to look into a mirror and face your imperfections is so terrifying that you'd rather just create a fantasy land where you're considered sane instead of owning up to the fact that your brain is so broken it's being held together with a combination of duct tape, super glue, and bubble wrap. I'm not saying that there aren't insecure men out there. There's plenty of them to go around. But everything you said can be equally applied to women, especially when women are encouraged to use the internet as their own form of toxic therapy, as well as an endless source of mind-numbing validation. It's pretty much what you live for at this point.
And when he doesn't get that reassurance or validation from you, he will look elsewhere to get it. He can be a little overbearing and possessive, not in the abusive way, but kind of a way that makes you feel like, oh, like I need space, like I need freedom. They can be jealous much more than the average guy, and needer. Like he'll just want you there for the sake of having you there. Like he'll just, to make him feel secure, you bring him a sense of comfort that he can't get by himself. He is likely to have trust issues from past relationships that he has not healed and brings all that baggage into your relationship for you to deal with.
Really?
Right, and I'm sure you leave your baggage at the door and don't assume that every single man that you date carries the qualities of the men who ruined you, right? The only difference between your baggage and the man's baggage is that the man is expected to deal with all of his issues before entering into a relationship, and you're allowed by some kind of divine feminine mandate to force that man to deal with your baggage instead of doing it your own stupid self. Modern women are somehow allowed to be lazy when it comes to their baggage because women weren't allowed to wear crew socks until 1957. It also gives them the right to condemn men for not making peace with their pasts because apparently it's just as easy to do that as wearing crew socks. Which I guess explains why modern women don't wear crew socks, which is fine by me. That just means more affordable comfort and support for my arches. And that's all that really matters.
I'm not saying these men are bad men, they're not bad men, and we all have insecurities, like we all will go through our own, but heal yourself. Like it's not up to your partner to heal you. Like they can't do that. And insecure men in general just tend to not work on themselves or to face problems head on. Like they prefer to just kind of like distract themselves, to mask it, to suppress it. And that's the only reason why I say just avoid. Unless this man's going to actually work on himself for you, he should really be doing it for himself. But if he's going to work on himself, then I'll wave the amber flag. But in general, it's a red flag for insecure men.
You need to face the fact. You're a racist. A racist. You, not me. I'm not the racist.
Hey lady, if a man works on himself, he's not doing it for you. What's the point? You've already adopted the mindset that men will never be good enough. And that's why working on yourself to please others is a fool's endeavor. If a man decides to improve himself physically, mentally, and spiritually, he does it for himself because he deserves it and nobody is going to do it for him. You, on the other hand, expect men to put in all of this work and then come in and fix all of your problems afterwards. And that's why you use terms like heal and men use terms like work. That's because we are willing to put in the effort to accomplish what needs to be done with grit, determination, and the knowledge that anything we want in life needs to be earned for ourselves. And after we put in that work and see the gains, we're not going to turn around and accept you into our lives. We've come too far and sacrificed too much to settle for someone who's just going to complain endlessly on the internet. Seriously, lady, do you honestly think about these things before you say them? Of course you don't. That would require you to actually think, and we all know that's not your strong suit.
Yes, I'm certain that I read that somewhere once.
Sorry, I'm just like overcome with emotion today. It's just like indescribably sad to be a woman of childbearing age right now, like especially like an older, like where the clock is ticking. Like I'm 31, I don't, I'm not in a rush, but like, and it's just like the last couple of days, especially with the Supreme Court stuff, like, I mean, it's all but assured that birth control is gone next year. Abortion pills gone next year. Like being required to save a woman's life who needs an abortion in an emergency room gone next year. And it's like, how much worse I'm sure it can get worse if Trump gets elected, but like how much worse can it get? And it's
What?
Well, it could always get worse, Agnes. I mean, have you ever seen that movie, The Beginning of the End? Scientists could always use radioactive plant food to inadvertently create a breed of super locusts that attack the planet. I mean, I couldn't imagine a worse fate than living in a Bird-Eye Gordon movie. Or Godzilla could happen. Outside of that, aliens could show up and use our skyscrapers as fodder for their intergalactic Tetris tournaments. I mean, Tetris tournaments, they're pretty intense on their own, but adding in the complete decimation of our infrastructure for the competitive whims of some intergalactic overlords would probably be dialing up the intensity a little bit too high for your average person. But you're so focused on this meaningless legislation that will ultimately never happen, thanks to the dog and pony show known as the American federal government, that you're forgetting one key thing, Agnes. And that is you're freaking out over wanting to have a child when you're in tears over contraception, which was designed to prevent pregnancies. Honestly, I think it would be a lot healthier to freak out over something that could actually happen, Agnes, like a Battleship movie sequel. That kind of prospect keeps me up at night and makes me not want to have kids.
It's like, and it's not going to get better. I mean, like we have to fight for it to get better. We can't give up because there will always be people in the future, and the future can get better, but it just feels like it can't get better for us. Like it's not going to get better in time for me, and it's like probably wouldn't get better in time for my kids, which it's so overwhelming. Like I can't even think about it too much. And then I think about that, and then it's like, but the people who don't feel this way, and the people who are not going to not have kids over this are, I'm not saying they're bad people, but they're not like the progressive people. Like, what is the world gonna look like if we're the people who don't have kids because of this? Like,
That's racist!
Oh, shut up, Agnes. The reason why you're not having kids has nothing to do with the government. It's not because of politics or because Orange Man Bad hurt your feelings for reasons you can't fully explain. It's because you made the active decision to scoff at the idea to have children when you had ample opportunity. I'm like a broken record at this point. You got to play life on easy mode, and yet you still failed miserably. All you had to do was find a suitable mate. That was it. But instead of doing that, you decided to become as vain, spoiled, and as unlikable as humanly possible. You can't blame the Supreme Court for that, nor can you blame the current political narrative. That was all on you, Agnes. How do I know this? Well, let's pretend this whole banning of contraception was actually a thing. Well, then wouldn't you be excited? That would mean that the odds of you having kids would go up dramatically because contraception would be outlawed. You see the problem, Agnes? You can't dread the idea of bringing children into this world when you're freaking out over a thing that's implicitly designed to prevent children from being conceived. But I guess it's really not an issue anyway. It's not like you're gonna have kids. That's probably for the best, Agnes, because let's be real here. If those kids were born, they'd be hyper-feminist freaks with hooves for feet and porridge for brains, and that's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to humanity. And that is going to do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. And as always, if you find that my particular brand of comedy is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button. Ring the notification bell, leave a couple of comments, and maybe share this video so we can get together and give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you once again for checking out this new video, and until next time, peace out, homies.